Headlines have been driving people to think more about their finances.
Go behind the headline hype with our podcast every weekday. Newscast. Listen on BBC Sounds.
It was the war that was never going to happen.
Я считаю, то, что происходит, военным преступлением.
The invasion that shook the world.
I just can't imagine living in the world without Ukraine. I can't imagine that.
And the fight back that took everyone by surprise.
The big question now, how much longer will the West continue to support Ukraine's defence?
The war in Ukraine 1 year on. For the stories and analysis, watch on BBC iPlayer.
Want to understand what the news means for you? BBC News Catch Up on Sounds is a new playlist that puts you in control and lets you explore the stories you're interested in. From breaking headlines...
There's been a wave of missile strikes across Ukraine.
...to deep dive podcasts and current analysis.
The longer the conflict goes on, the more chance there is just something happening that leads to an escalation.
Make sense of the stories you care about whenever suits you. Open the BBC Sounds app, tap podcasts for News Catch Up.
This is BBC News. Welcome. If you're watching here in the UK or around the globe, I'm Lukwesa Burak. Our top stories. Fire sweeps through a Bangladesh refugee camp, destroying shelters and leaving 12,000 Rohingya people homeless. The Greek Prime Minister has asked for forgiveness from the families of 57 people who died in the country's worst ever train crash last week, following days of protests across Greece. Military spending in China will increase by more than 7% this year, as Premier Li Keqiang said attempts to contain China were escalating. The UK Prime Minister pledges to deport all small boat arrivals by asylum seekers. And after a decade of talks, more than 100 UN member states agree on a treaty to protect the world's oceans.
The ship has reached the shore.
Hello and welcome to BBC News. A huge fire has ripped through one of the Rohingya refugee camps in Cox's Bazar in southeast Bangladesh. The charity ActionAid said their initial assessment was that more than 2,000 shelters had been gutted, leaving around 12,000 people homeless. Hundreds of thousands of Rohingya refugees who escaped violence in neighbouring Myanmar have been living in cramped camps near the border in Bangladesh. Well, earlier we spoke to our South Asia correspondent, Ambarasa Nathirajan, who started off by telling us more about where the fire took place and also an update on what we know so far.
And it's a very sprawling camp where tens of thousands of people live